This is something that we probably shouldn't say. Raise your hand if you don't understand. This isn't going to get us a group of students that is begging to say, hey, I don't get it. I don't get this word. I don't know. Me. And it's not going to do it for a lot of reasons. A lot of students don't want to get attention to themselves. A lot of students don't want to admit that they don't understand something. And a lot of students just don't want to go through the effort of explaining they don't understand. They just want to keep the class going. Maybe they'll get out early. They can get that 5 minutes break. A lot of teachers also ask, does everybody understand? Now you have 3 situations here. You have one student who looks pretty happy. He's got his book. He's chilling. And he says, yes, I understand. And he's thinking, yes, I understand. Then you have the other student. Again, looks happy, smiling, yeah, I understand. But really he's thinking, gosh, I have no idea. Now, a lot of the classes that I observed, teachers were using the Socratic app. And that's fantastic because you get rid of the student who doesn't want to admit he doesn't understand publicly. However, you also have a third group of students. These are the students that think they understand, but really don't. Maybe you're dealing with a false cognate. Okay, maybe you're asking them if they know the word embarrassed. And they all go, yeah, embarazado, yeah. Okay, embarrassed and embarazado are clearly not the same. So it's really important that you don't ask this question and trust that your students know if they do or do not understand. What does mean? This puts a lot of pressure on students. I am sure you've had a time when a student has come up to you and said, teacher, what's this word mean? And you just couldn't think of a way to explain it. In English, in Spanish, in any language. It was a little tricky, it was hard to explain. This puts a lot of pressure on students. They end up playing, some weird form of charades where they're trying to kind of describe that maybe it is or taboo because they don't have the language to properly describe what they're trying to describe. Okay, we've covered some of these words like this before, so you should all know. Okay, once you've told a student that they should know it, the chances of them telling you that they don't are very, very low. And then you've just skimmed over these students, supposing that they know, and they really don't understand what you're saying. This is very similar. You all seem to understand. And it's true. Sometimes we have classes that are very visual. You can see on their faces if they understand or if they don't. But sometimes we're only making eye contact with the students that do understand. So even though the boy in the middle knows exactly what's going on, the boys around him are lost. So if we only pay attention to him, we're going to leave the rest behind. Okay, we can do better than this. We can do better than asking students to single themselves out. We can do better than trusting them to know, or hoping that they know. And we can do better than asking them to create a definition. Sometimes this is really hard. Now, I'm not asking you to never do these things. There are some situations when these are completely appropriate. There's another, and that's concept check questions. It's much harder for a student to fake that they understand a word when you are using concept check questions. Are they closed or open questions? They're closed. Who asks them? The teacher. Is there just one or more than one? Usually there's more than one. These are examples of concept check questions. They're questions that you ask to confirm that the students really understand the vocabulary. Okay, let's go through step by step. How to start. First, make sure you really understand the word. I recommend you look it up in the dictionary. This is an example of the idiom or the phrasal verb to fall short. There's a cutout from Merriam-Webster's dictionary, and there's one from dictionary.com. Basically, they both tell you that if you fall short, you're failing. Okay, how are we going to make this into a concept check question? There's a lot of different types of concept check questions. There's yes, no. If you fall short, did you try? Yes, if you fell short, you tried. When you fall short, it means you failed at something despite your effort. If you fall short, do you succeed or fail? Okay, you're giving your students a 50-50 chance. Fail. You can ask for specific information. Who has fallen short? Leonardo DiCaprio with his, yet again, Oscar failure. This isn't exactly a closed question, but it's still a question where you're seeking a specific answer. Where would you find this? What time do you see this? Specific questions. Discrimination. How is this different from flunk? Well, you'd only use flunk for classes. Life experience or culture. Have you ever fallen short on a test? Can you fall short on a test? Depending on your class, that would be a yes or a no. Shared experience. This is similar to life experience, except for you're calling out things that you know they've experienced. What sometimes falls short in this class? The internet. Okay? Quite often in my classroom, the internet falls short. Today, my monitor stopped working in the middle of class, so I could call back on this later. Right? Last week, what fell short in Friday's class? Oh, teacher, the screen stopped working. Yeah, good. Then they're showing that they understand. Why do we do 3? Well, let's look at an example with 2. Do we write on it? Yes. Is it soft? No. I could be talking about a cast. I could be talking about a tablet. I could be talking about a desk. I could be talking about a keyboard. 3 questions tends to be enough to let us get really specific. Now, you don't always need 3 questions. Sometimes 1 or 2 is just fine, especially if you're using a visual. But I would recommend always having at least 2. Sometimes you want more than 3. Depends on how difficult the word is and how confusing you think it might be for your students. Okay, there's some rules to keep in mind when you are making your concept check questions. Mainly, keep it simple. Let's look at some bad concept check questions. If my word was apple, I could ask, is it of the species Malus domestica or Prunus armeniaca? Okay, we can clearly see the problem here is that the vocabulary is completely inappropriate for our students. The vocabulary is completely inappropriate for me. Asset. How is it different than a boon? Again, unless boon is a recent vocabulary word, it's also inappropriate for your students. Brawl. If you weren't asking in a not peaceful way, is that a brawl? Try to keep the grammar simple. If you're using complicated or confusing grammar, it's gonna make it hard to see if they don't understand the question or they don't understand the definition. So let's look at some better questions that we could ask for these words. Apple. Does it grow in a tree or in the ground? Okay, if they say in the ground, then we know they don't know what an apple is. If they say in a tree, then we can follow to the next step. What color is it? Can you bake it, etc. Asset. How is it different than property? They should know the word property. Property can be an asset, but an asset isn't always property. Brawl. Would a peaceful person normally brawl? No. Okay, of these 3, the easiest to answer are probably 1 and 3. Differentiation questions are good if you're teaching something similar to what you've taught before. Otherwise, it tends to get a little complicated. So let's look at the next rule. Make sure you focus on the meaning. Let's look at a bad example of that. Recently in my class, we covered what a 401k was. Does it involve numbers? Yes. Is it over 500? No. Is there a vowel? No. Did I answer what a 401k is? No. None of those help us understand the word. I know this seems obvious, but a lot of times teachers fall into this trap. We're trying to make simple questions, and as a result, we overlook the meaning completely. So let's look at some better questions we could ask. Where would you find this? In a bank, with a company. Can you have one without a company? No, a 401k has to be through a company. An IRA you can have without a company. Is it used for retirement? Yes. Okay, so through this we can see that a 401k is a retirement fund that is done through companies. A better question would be things which involved the concept of the word rather than the word itself. Again, go back to a specific example. Can a computer misfire? Yes, definitely. I can ask my computer to do something and it can turn off instead. That would be misfiring. I'm not getting what I expected. Is a misfire a success or a failure? It's a failure. It's pretty much the definition of. Is it hot? No, not at all. But if a student says yes, then you know they're focusing on fire. You could also ask, is it cold? To see if they were focusing on the opposite of fire, since it's misfire. But these are all better questions than the previous. Okay, you're almost there. I have a personal challenge for you. If you'd like, go ahead and find 5 words or phrases that you think your students will struggle with in future lessons. Try to come up with at least 3 concept check questions, including answers for each word. Be sure to use a variety of questions. Now there's no homework, so you're not required to do this, but if you'd like feedback, you can go ahead and post these on the discussion board, and the other teachers can chime in. Or if you want to do it more privately, you're welcome to send me an email. You can find my email in the Blackboard course. Overall, I hope that you found this educational, if nothing else, and if you have any questions, please let me know. Thanks!